Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Caribbean Examinations Council press conference. We are happy that you're able to join us this afternoon, and we take seriously your time, so we'll try and be as efficient as possible with what we're about to share with the media. After my brief remarks, I will allow for questions from the media present with us this afternoon as we seek to offer clarity on the approved modified examination process and to also provide more information on the administration of the modified approach this year. So again, welcome to the Caribbean Examinations Council press conference following the decision of Council for Human and Social Development granting approval on Friday, May 8, 2020 for the administration of CXC's regional examinations in July 2020, with results being made available by the first week in September 2020. The modified strategy is to yield valid grades, assess critical competencies, and minimize the disruption to the education system during these unprecedented times. Will preserve the integrity of the examinations. The modified examinations approach is as follows: the administration of at least one common paper, and in this case, the multiple choice assessment. And I just want to point out that for a public examination body such as the Caribbean Examinations Council, administering assessment across countries, it is imperative that a common paper be administered. And in situations where we are facilitating the assessment comparison across years, it is important that we have a common paper structure for the examination. Secondly, it involves the school-based assessment, paper 3.2, which is the alternative paper to the SBA for private candidates. And in this case, we will have an expanded moderation exercise that will see the moderation process being extended to all center across all subjects. Having these two pieces of information, the award of final grades will be based on the moderated SBA and the multiple choice papers. During our grading process, CXC's quality assurance process will apply the appropriate weighting to ensure that candidates are treated fairly and in an unbiased manner. Exemptions to the aforementioned process, where candidates will be required to complete additional components, are as follows. For modern languages, Spanish, French, and Portuguese, human and social biology, visual arts will have additional component requirements as follows. 1, for CSEC, French, Portuguese, and Spanish, students are expected to write paper 1, paper 2, and paper 3, which are the oral examinations. For CSEC, human and social biology, candidates will be required to write paper 1 and paper 2. For CSEC visual arts, students are expected to submit their SBA and reflective journals. For CAPE, French, and Spanish, students are expected to write paper 1, paper 2, and paper 3. And of course, school candidates submitting their SBAs. For private candidates, they are expected to write paper 1, paper 2, paper 3, as well as paper 4.2 for private candidates. Those are the exemptions, or the exceptions rather, to the modified approach, where candidates will be expected to write additional components. In the process of administering these examinations, the e-testing modality will be employed. However, it will be applicable to those institutions or territories that are equipped to facilitate e-testing. In other words, they do have the infrastructure in place for e-testing to be administered. However, in territories where the infrastructure challenges are insurmountable, it is expected that those candidates will write the paper-based modality. In respect of health and safety, I want to point out that it is the #1 priority of the Examinations Council to ensure the safety and well-being of stakeholders during these unprecedented times. All examination centers and invigilators will follow the guidelines of national health protocols as it relates to social distancing, the wearing of masks, and sanitization. Rest assured that as the management and staff of the council continue to monitor the emerging situation, our first priority is health and well-being of all our stakeholders. We continue to work closely with our local registrars to ensure all the systems, required systems, are in place on the ground, and wherever there are challenges, we continue to overcome such with the required response to ensure that the solution does not disadvantage any stakeholder. Ladies and gentlemen, that's my opening statement, and I will now open the floor for questioning from the media at this time. I must say that joining me here today is our Director of Operations, Mrs. Nicole Manning, and our Senior Manager for Exam Administration and Security, Ms. Diane Medford, and they will assist me in responding to the question. I must also say, joining you in the Zoom meeting room, we also have Dr. Carl Granston, who is a pro registrar and based in Jamaica, as well as Mr. Rodney Payne, our Director for Technological Innovation. Mrs. Armstrong Muller, our Director for Corporate Services. So those persons are with me to assist in responding to your queries and concerns. At this time, Mr. Richard Rose will monitor the questions and concerns that you have for us to address. Richard, can you now moderate that session for me as it relates to questions?
Thank you, Dr. Wesley. The process we will now follow is by using on the Zoom technology, raising your hand, and then we will identify the person and call them by name. The floor is now open for questions. Thank you. Julian Needs.
Yes, Julian Needs from Newsday. You're hearing me, Registrar and officials?
Go ahead, we're hearing you.
You hear me? Okay. Yeah, yes, Registrar. You mentioned that there were some territories which will most likely may have to use the paper-based modality. What do we have an idea which territories that could be at this point?
All right. Several would have indicated their ability to do so, but we have not gotten all the responses yet. But there are a couple territories that have already indicated their desire to move with the e-testing. But the process, though, in any one territory, you can have both modalities being utilized. Chronicle, that was from Guyana, the Chronicle.
Okay, so
Okay.
Jamaica Garnet, and as Dr. Wesley mentioned, please identify your media houses.
Yes, Jordana Murphy here from the Gleaner Company. I'd like to know if the Jamaican government has changed its position on the hosting of exams in July.
Thanks for that question. We are unable to speak at this moment on the decision of the Jamaican government.
So Dr. Wesley, the question from Jamaica, and is a follow-up to Julian's question. Can you say which are the countries that have identified that they can accommodate e-testing?
Okay, can you do that?
We have information on some of the countries at this time. We know that, for example, Dominica has indicated that they will be doing that. There are people in Anguilla. Anguilla has been, over the years, following total e-testing where possible, but we are awaiting information from other territories.
BVI.
Pervarsha TV6. So if the person from Pervarsha TV6 can just give your name.
Good afternoon, Urvashi from CCN TV6 in Trinidad. So my question is, there was, just to let you know, there was a letter to the editor written by an educator, teacher. It appeared in the Express newspaper today, where this geography teacher for 30 years, she expressed some concerns. Her concerns with the exams would be that it's difficult for students to shift into exam mode in just this space of time, one. Two, she spoke about the psychology of the students, like some of them may be affected with parents or relatives affected with COVID-19, persons close to them who may have died, relatives stranded abroad in cruise ships, etc. Those two concerns. And the third concern she had was that as a teacher of geography, she says she cannot conceive an examination that tests senior pupils simply on multiple choice. Can you please address those three concerns?
Okay, so thank you very much for that question. To address the last question first, it is the determination of the student's performance is not only on the multiple choice examination, there is also the SBA component that would be required. We would have done extensive analysis in ensuring that we are able to cover all the necessary skills and competencies, and where those we were unable to assess those, additional components would have been required. So it is not just the multiple choice, but it is important to note that the SBA is also one of the modalities for assessing those critical skills and competencies. As to the time frame, we are cognizant of the fact that the COVID-19 situation would be having an impact on students' readiness, but we also recognize, so in recognition of that, if you notice, the paper 2 would not be offered at this time as well, which should be a reduced level of anxiety on the students and prolonged exposure within a space for any health issues to arise. As it relates to the third point, so that was the coverage, the health issue, the readiness, the state of readiness, and there was a third point.
The psychology.
Those were the concerns?
The psychology of the students
psychology.
disproportionately affected by, relatives being stranded abroad, even the economics of it, parents now unemployed, just affected by being in a pandemic.
Yes, and we are very much cognizant of that and recognize, and that's the complexity of the issues that we had to balance in making a determination. because that's not the only issue, while it is a significant one, but we had to balance the many factors one had to give consideration to. So we are not denying that it is likely to have an impact, but we are minimizing as much as possible that impact.
Thank you for that question. Siobhan Campbell from Nationwide News is asking if a territory has stated its inability to meet a July date, what arrangements will be made in such a case?
Within the context of the Caribbean Examination Council, we operate within a regional construct. And that regional construct would see all ministries of education and all relevant personnel come together to make a decision. All of those concerns would have been taken into consideration, and where countries would have indicated serious challenges as it relates to COVID-19, then of course bilateral talks can be held as indicated in the press release from COSAD.
Jennifer Richardson, Agency for Public Information, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. How the marking of the papers will be done this year? Would teachers be required to travel, or would it be done online?
The marking will be done online in cases where we require teachers to mark, especially for those paper 2 that will be administered and paper 3-2. Right.
Naomi Paris, also from the Guyana Chronicle. Do you believe that the absence of paper 2 will make the examination less efficient in the sense that it would not give children room to elaborate on their points and truly portray their academic capabilities? Is there any consideration for the implementation of systems to accommodate students who might not have internet access or access to any form of technology? And the final question, but I'll read them if you need them again. Would the council consider a further postponement of the examinations, or the current time frame is set in stone?
The decision from CARICOM is clear. There is a date for the examinations now, and this is not a time to create any level of uncertainty with the students or candidates who are being prepared. The examinations is July. As it relates to technology, as I indicated earlier, where the infrastructure challenges are insurmountable, then those persons will have access to the paper-based modality to write their examinations. So no one will be disadvantaged if they don't have e-testing capabilities. And in relation to the first question, it is important. What we have done is to ensure that we have sufficient information to be able to make to be able to award valid grades to students that would speak to the skills and competencies they should demonstrate having completed and gone through the CSEC and CAPE syllabuses.
Orson Pickard from Creme Television, Belize.
Thank you. Hi, Orson Pickard, Creme Television, Belize City. Registrar,
Yes,
while
sir.
it is that the CSEC examination will be administered in July, and you pointed that out very clearly, I understand that in different parts of the Caribbean, we operate under different timelines or different time ranges. Will other regions be allowed, for reasons beyond their control, to administer the exam in January? And if so, what measures will be employed to ensure the credibility of the examination?
So if a country decides that they will write the exams in January, the full administration of the examinations will occur. So the normal examination cycle will run. I must say that the modified approach is only within the context of the impact of COVID-19 currently on the education system. So this modified approach is just for this period. Come January, we would have returned to our full administration. The only consideration that a country would have to give is that in the January sitting, there are 13 subjects that are offered, and perhaps those, some of the subjects that students would have been registered for, they would perhaps have to wait until May, June to write those subjects. But in January, 13 subjects are offered, including maths, English, the sciences, POB, IT, Spanish, and human and social biology, I think. Yes.
And so, secondary registrar, so what measures will be employed then in that case to ensure the credibility of these examinations?
You mean the modified approach now or
Correct.
January?
Correct,
Because
sir.
if it's January,
In January.
we go back to our full mode. We are back into our full administration. We are paper 1, paper 2, paper 3, and in some cases, paper 4 will be administered. So there's no need. So of course, our normal administration, quality assurance, and security processes will be in place at that time.
Thank you very much, Registrar.
Thank you for that question. Annalisa Paul from Trinidad Guardian. Concerns were raised here about the lack of access to devices by students and those unable to complete their SPAs and IAs. How is this being considered in the final grading system?
Okay, for those who are, well, we have extended the deadline for SBAs to June 30th, the end of June. So CAPE, CSET, and CCSLC, if they do have SBAs outstanding, they do have up until June 30th to submit those. We have been working with the local registrar to treat with situations where individuals would find it difficult to complete their SBAs.
And then also to remind persons that there is an absolute deadline, which is July 31st. So there is the first deadline, which we are encouraging people to try to meet that deadline. But we do have something called the absolute deadline, which we have every year, and that is July 31st.
Andrea Chisholm, Television Jamaica. Will CSEC be making separate arrangements for Jamaica, considering the country will not be able to meet the July deadline? Even if the paper-based format is accepted, there are still concerns about physical distancing and the safety of students.
Okay, so in relation to Jamaica, as pointed out in the press release from CARICOM, we are allowed to have bilateral discussions on what is applicable should the COVID-19 situation persist. So we are open to dialogue with the Ministry of Education in Jamaica.
Judana Murphy.
Yes, my next question. Should most territories choose the paper modality as opposed to the e-testing modality? Will that impact the September result date?
No, it will not. We will still be able to meet the first week in September deadline.
Question from Letitia Isaac from the Department of Public Information, Guyana. Will the paper ones be entirely multiple choice? And what does the new timetable look like? Additionally, will the Spanish, French, and Portuguese oral examinations be done in person? Okay,
so I'll allow Dan to respond to the questions as it relates to the time that the timetable. But I just want to speak first of all to the structure of the exam, and then Dan will deal with the logistical issues. In respect of the structure of the examination, it remains the same. We would not have changed any format to the examinations, so it continues to be what is outlined in the syllabuses for all of those subjects. Dan will respond to the other issues with respect to the timetable being from June to...
Yes, the timetables are on our website. They've been there since last month. They're titled provisional on our website. You can find them for all the examinations, CAPE, CSET, and CCSLC. In terms of the orals, we're working with the local registrars to determine the actual logistics of orals. We are exploring the possibility of having the remote conferencing used for that examination as well, and those guidelines will be discussed with local registrars. But as Dr. West has been saying, CXC tries to work with each territory because each territory is not at the same stage right now. And we're trying to ensure that we work individually with them.
Thank you. Tanika Garnett, how many students are scheduled to write the 2020 CSEC and CAPE examination?
30,000 for CAPE, approximately, and 120,000 for CSEC.
Thank you. Julian Neves from Newsday, Trinidad and Tobago. What is the deadline for the territories to indicate whether they will be choosing the e-testing or paper-based modality?
Well, the deadline actually, the first deadline had passed, but in view of what has been happening, we sent another request just last week, and we're expecting to have information by the end of this week, which is the middle of the month, hopefully, from all the local registrars.
Annalisa Paul from Trinidad Guardian, and basically she said, and Barbados has also indicated they want exams to be suspended. So what's happening there as well?
As I said, we are guided by the decision of coastal education for the administration of examinations, and that is July 2020.
Any further questions at this point? Julian Neves, Newsday. Please proceed.
Sorry, are you hearing me now?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, yes. I'm just wondering, with the establishment of the e-testing, I'm wondering if CXC had to outsource some and get some additional resources, and whether there was the need for additional training of staff and so forth.
Diane, you want to respond?
You're referring to our implementation of the process, or you're referring to the territories?
Well, yes, for on CXC side's implementation of the process.
Yes, well, in terms of our implementation, we would have had to secure the platform, and we would have, done our due diligence in that respect. And then, of course, staff would have had to been trained, and then not only the staff here, but also our agents, the local registrars would have been trained, and then the invigilators in the territories would also have undergone training, and we continue to train. So we've had training up to last week. We've had training as well. We conducted training, and this, of course, is done in a virtual mode for the various persons involved in the process.
Thank you. Andrea Chisholm, again, you mentioned bilateral discussions. Wouldn't CXC have already discussed the issue with the Jamaican authorities? Who represented Jamaica at the previous meeting? And was Jamaica ignored or outvoted at the Quotient meeting?
We attended as invitees to the coastal education meeting. We are not necessarily at liberty to speak to what obtains at those meetings, other than the decisions that they would have handed down to us. And the countries are all at their own sovereign, do have their own sovereign authority to determine their own course of action.
Thank you, Dr. Wesley. Patrice Wishart from News Talk Radio Guyana. How secure is the e-paper process in terms of student cheating?
Okay, so we would have had the e-testing, I should say, we start from there. It's not necessarily a new system. It's something that we have been utilizing to administer exams in the jurisdiction. We mentioned that whether it's one of them that would have been using the full modality. And it is secure, and we have all the systems in place to facilitate and to ensure that we don't have any cheating taking place there. I would also want to add that there are opportunities for persons to view what the testing actually looks like on the website, so you can have an idea of how the test is administered electronically.
Yes, further to that, I just wanted to advise that I guess maybe some people are thinking that a candidate walks into the examination with the invite, and uses the computer provided, and that they may have access to notes and things like that on the system which they would want to use. And I just wanted to inform you that the e-testing system which we utilize includes what is called a safe exam browser. So when candidates log into the system to write the examination, the browser must be utilized in order to access the examination, and that browser locks the candidate out of anything else other than the examination. So that is one major way of securing the examination for the candidate.
Thank you. Tanika Garnett, proceed.
Good afternoon, everyone. Over the years, teachers in Guyana have been complaining about not being paid for the marking of SBAs. I'm not sure if other countries in the region may have had similar cases, but has this ever been addressed or any consideration ever been given to the teachers that mark the SBAs?
The marking, so thank you for that question. The marking of SBA is really a local issue. Since I have assumed the role of registrar, the personnel from the Caribbean Union of Teachers, they have raised the issue with me, but it is really a matter of, it's really a local matter as it relates to the marking of SBA.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any further questions?
Are there any further questions?
We have one here.
Okay.
We have one here that's just come through. Sunil Lala from the Caribbean Lifestyle Communications, Trinidad.
Okay.
If a student who is writing exams present with a suspected COVID-19 symptoms on entry to the exam, what will be put in place for them?
Well, as I indicated earlier, while we will observe the social distancing, the sanitization process, as well as the mask, we will still be governed by the national health protocol and observe what is required in the various national jurisdictions as to their own protocol for treating with such issues. Where quarantine is necessary, those facilities will be provided at those locations through the local registrars monitoring the situation. But certainly we would have to abide by the respective health protocols in the different territories.
Any further questions? One more question from Patrice Richard from News Talk Radio Ghana. What would happen in terms of a power outage? Would there be a system in place if students are unable to complete the exams due to that reason?
And I'm assuming the person is referring to e-testing. If the person is
yes, e-testing.
Right. So the system is set up also to, if there is power outage, work can also be completed offline, and then it can be uploaded at that time. So there are certain features that we have. It's not just totally an online process. There's the online total. Then we have as far as total offline mode. There are different modes of offering the e-testing.
Yes, and also I think in cases where we suspect high level of volatility as it relates to electricity, then we will actually try and have paper-based backup available to ensure students can complete the exercise or the examinations rather.
Thank you. Orson Picard, please proceed with your question.
Yes, good afternoon once again. This is just a technical question for the administrator. Will permission be allowed or granted on the YouTube page for download of this particular brief? Thank you.
Yes, I was told that yes, it will be available. Or if it is that you want a specific area of the clip, you can always touch base with our media department, right? Yes.
Yes.
I noticed that it is available via the YouTube page, so hence the reason I was asking, no? I'm saying that it's currently being streamed on the YouTube page, so I was wondering if permission will be granted there for the download of the entire press brief.
Okay. Yes, it will be.
Question is from Jennifer Richardson. If a student is unable to write the exams due to health problems such as asthma or COVID, will they be allowed to write the exams at a later date?
we do have a standard policy to address students who are experiencing hardship, and there are protocols involved in how we treat with situations like those that will allow them to sit the examination at a later date. But there's an established protocol and policy in place to address that issue.
As we recognize that there are slight delays in terms of the time when the chats come through, we'll just wait 1 or 2 minutes. So if you have any further questions, please identify yourself. There's a question here from Julian Neves, Newsday. Have some facilities been put in place for students with special needs, such as the blind and visually impaired, to participate in e-testing?
Is that it? Or Dan? Dan?
Well, even before e-testing, we offered the use of screen readers for visually impaired. So that has now been facilitated even more by the e-testing platform. That is something we've always had in place for a number of years. The use of screen readers such as JAWS and so on, and candidates have been using those.
Thank you. A question from Andrew Chisholm, TVJ. Can you indicate which countries have agreed to the July exam?
As I indicated earlier, COSUD is one of the governance bodies of CARICOM, and they would have communicated that there is consensus on the July examination. I cannot and I would not be in a position to speak to the countries or the territories that really supported or did not support the consensus arrived at.
Patrice Wishart from News Talk Radio Guyana. If the COVID-19 cases increase in particular territories or the economic constraints become severe, is CXC prepared to push the date later into the year?
Well, certainly if there is continued worsening of the situation that caused all member states of CARICOM not to be able to write the examinations, then this is something COSUD Education is prepared to reconvene and address the issue going forward. But as it is right now, everything is still predicated on the fact that we are in a position to offer the examination.
Okay, if there are no further questions, I'll hand over to Dr. Wesley to say his final comment.
Okay, thank you very much, Richard. I just want to point out that this issue is really a sensitive one at this time right across the region. There are several issues to balance, several competing interests, but at the end of the day, it is important that our candidates are given the opportunity to take advantage of the different processes or the different opportunities rather that will come for them to avail themselves of. It is therefore critical that as a regional organization that we take note of what is happening and respond accordingly. Our response at the Caribbean Examination Council is one that seeks consensus on the activities that we execute and one that is very mindful of the issues as it relates to our candidates and what is in their best interest of all stakeholders possible. COSUD would have given us the approval required for us to administer the examinations in July, and we will seek to do so in a very safe and healthy way to ensure that all our stakeholders are not exposed unduly and at the same time do have the opportunity to make use of the opportunities coming to them, whether through higher education, employment, or even remaining within their own schools for further development. It is critical that whatever we do, we minimize the disruption as far as possible to the education system. I want to thank you all for participating this afternoon. I thank my colleague, Nicole Manning, and Mrs. Diane Medford, Ms. Diane Medford for joining us, Dr. Cara Granston, Mr. Rodney Payne, as well as Mrs. Armstrong Muller in supporting our communication team. Thank you all, and I wish you all the best during this trying time and unprecedented time within our region. Thank you from the Caribbean Examination Council.